Welcome to Business Talk, and it's a new year, new challenges, the year of the tiger, and someone who knows all about challenges is Michael Jordaan and his partner Yatin Nasai, who've travelled some road to get to the official launch of their new app-driven bank that offers all of this added control and transparency and ease of use. In fact, I've just registered. It took me about 5 minutes before we started this recording to take the selfies and to do the voice recognition and all of that, and personalize my virtual card. So Michael Jordaan, there's nothing like that kind of endorsement, I guess. That must make you quite pleased. But it took you some time. You announced this back in 2018, was it? And you officially came to market in August last year. Just tell me a little bit about that journey before we talk about where you are now currently with the bank.
Yes, it took long. It took much longer than we had originally anticipated. And a bit of that is getting your regulatory approval, which is tough, as it should be, from the South African Reserve Bank. And then we elected to build the entire tech stack ourselves. So it's not just the app that you experience, it's the middleware, it's the back end. That takes a bit longer, but the advantage of that is that the cost is lower and that you build a platform that you own. And therefore, it sets you up for a whole lot of innovation that you don't get if you just buy software off the shelves.
Mm. And that innovation, certainly came through in the onboarding process for me. The fact is you take a couple of selfies, look over your left shoulder, right shoulder, and it's a really, we talk about this buzzword in business, seamless process and onboarding and making it easy, but it really is. I mean, that user experience is fantastic. How is the market warm to this? Because you're always going to have early adopters. You're going to have those in the middle who like to follow, and then those that are rather sticky. How's the market reacted?
We haven't yet released any customer numbers, so I'm not going to do so now. It's been slow and steady. We've been very happy with the type of customers that we're getting. In other words, we're getting people who not only register and then leave, but they are transacting, and we've seen good month-on-month growth there. So it's a steady customer that then really starts switching the entire banking relationship over to us. We haven't advertised yet, but it's probably something that we will start doing in about a month's time.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly going to be one of those who's transacting on the platform and actually making use of it. Now, as the name Bank Zero suggests, I know you're a bit of a maths nerd, so there's a great story behind that, but nearly all the transactions done on the app or using that virtual card are free. So how does the business model work? How do you actually make money?
Michael, it's a question I get most often. I can't go to a bribe without having to face that question. And the way I like to answer it is the Stockholm syndrome. You remember when hostages were taken and those hostages started developing positive feelings towards their hostage takers, even though they were the ones being exploited. And banking in South Africa is just like that. People pay these very high bank fees, and then they worry when a bank starts giving zero fees, that maybe it isn't right. And the answer is that there are many banks in the world that offer free banking. The trick to be able to do so is, first of all, to have a low cost base, and we have that. It's a tiny head office and a tiny team. And secondly, there are other revenue streams that are hidden to customers. For example, if we as a bank take a lot of retail deposits, you aggregate them and you invest that at a wholesale rate. There's a profit in that. There's profit in payment interchange, like when you swipe cards, or there are commissions, like when customers buy airtime or electricity. So we're very, very comfortable with the business model. Even though it's free, the message is you and your business are paying far too much in bank fees.
Yeah, and I mean, it's remarkable how in South Africa in particular, we have become those proverbial hostages. We're so used to it. We were so used to these exorbitant and swinging fees. So is free banking then the main draw card? Did you see that as your big headline draw card for prospective customers?
We think it's important, and we think there's a segment of the market that is appropriately price sensitive. We also think it's important in the business market. So this isn't just targeted at consumers. Very importantly, it's targeted at a whole range of businesses, not just sole props, but also PTY Limited. And there they can save thousands and thousands of rands a month. But that isn't all. We've also been able to develop a whole host of very innovative, powerful functionality. And once again, that had to do with owning our own banking platform, developing it ourselves, and then devising this from the front end first, from mobile first. And we said, What are the type of things that you can do with a mobile phone that you can't do in a branch? From location to, you mentioned the biometrics and the identification, the selfie that you can take that you can put on your card, the type of extra security that you can have from notifications. So we think the free banking is but the entry, something that is enabled by new technology. The price of our era is free, Facebook's free, Google's free, etc. But then the real killer is all the killer functionality that we can build on top of mobile phones.
Yeah, and that you're building without that legacy debt that many of the incumbents have incurred over years. I've heard stories about banks still running systems that were designed on the machines from the 1980s and DOS programs. I'm sure frantically the banks are trying to get rid of that, but it's not as easy as that. It's what you get from these first principle advantages that you were talking about earlier. So, with that in mind, who do you see as the target market here? Is it the more young, tech savvy that you see as the first movers? Talk to me about who you see as the main target market.
Well, it's actually every South African with a smartphone, and there are 38 million active smartphone users out there. So that's our entire target market for individuals. And it's every single business out there that has a smartphone. And that's just under 2 million businesses in South Africa. And it's important, I once again make this point about the businesses in South Africa. Consumer banking has become quite price competitive. So it's possible now to get good deals, not free banking, but good deals mostly out there. But businesses pay a lot more than individuals in South Africa. So we've particularly developed a lot of functionality that makes it easy to register as a business, to accept payments that will cost you less, and to do the type of things that businesses want to do on their smartphone conveniently. So just under 2 million businesses and 38 million smartphone users in South Africa is what we're targeting.
That's a massive addressable market there. And also solving for a challenge that helps support that key engine of economic growth in the country. And I know you're a very patriotic South African and like to look at things through that lens of, well, what are the solutions? We know what the problems are. We've all kind of read through the Zondo report. Even before he released it, we knew what the problems were, but we need to get into this problem-solving mindset. And that certainly speaks to that. You don't have any branches. I found it really, really simple to open an account, but I want to hear you talk me through it. How does one actually go and open an account?
Well, it's quite right. When you cannot rely on branches and you cannot rely on cumbersome paperwork, you have to go to first principles and say, what electronic databases can we use and what functionality and features that a smartphone has can one use? So it's quite simple. You download the app, you register on the app. What you need for that is 2 documents, being your identity document and some proof of residence. You take a picture of yourself. You've just been through it. It's not just a picture. You have to actually, it has to capture your full face. We use that for security purposes. We check your location because we also want to deliver a card to you. That card is personalized, not only with your picture, you can even put an interesting message on it. My daughter, for example, put a message on, "Don't steal my card." Other people have said, "Be kind." Some people, I don't know, put their ID number on there, sometimes not even the right one, so they can get into clubs when they're under 18. And you and you can start transacting. So it really is that simple.
And as I said earlier, I've heard it pitched before in the digital space that things are simple and they often don't quite translate when you actually do it yourself, when you physically try and register and do things. This certainly has been. Another big issue in South Africa is that as a nation, we have a very low savings rate. And again, it comes back to those structural issues that we really need to address as a country if we are to sustainably increase our rates of growth and the ability to create prosperity for more South Africans. And it comes down to financial inclusion, all of those purpose-driven things. How can a bank help in this regard? Because surely banks are out there trying to get people into debt.
Michael, you're quite right. It's a structural issue for South Africa. If we don't create our own capital, we're reliant on foreigners to give us capital to grow the economy. So we should have a much higher savings rate. Also think it's a cultural issue. Somehow we want to keep up with the Joneses, and borrowing has become kind of an entrenched way of life in South Africa, and it needn't be. Other countries, like China, for example, have very, very high savings rates. Now, the first way in which we can save more is to get rid of banking fees. There's a lot of evidence that says, people don't even want to put money in a savings account because the fees eat it up, particularly for small savers. So That's an important thing that Bank Zero brings. But then we also, when you open an account with us, automatically open a separate savings account for you. We allow you to name it with a savings goal, anything that you want to do, whether it's art or a holiday or studies. And then you can track your savings there with a little bar, that gets closer and closer to the goal. So we've gamified it. And gamification is an important way to then encourage savings. So you're quite right. We think there are enough lenders in the country. It's a very competitive lending market. That's not where we can excel. But if we can give good interest rates, zero fees, and gamify the saving experience, we are actually seeing very good customer behavior that are taking this up, including the youth. They like, instead of having the piggy bank of old, having an app in which they can track their savings. And, we think it's a very good start. And in a small way, that helps with the savings stock.
Gamification is a great way, I think, particularly to engage the youth. And we recently saw that Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal, and we know how big that market is. But kids do everything on smartphones these days. I've got a 4 and a 7-year-old, and what did they want for Christmas? They didn't want color change Barbies. They wanted tablets. And from TikTok to Snapchat, they're doing everything online. Why then are they not engaged in banking using an app? Why hasn't that bridge yet been crossed?
Michael, you're quite right. They do everything on the phone, so much so that, we may even want to restrict them on the time they spent gaming. I mean, there's a whole world out there, and the hours it sucks kids in is actually quite amazing. Again, China's limited in a big move to 3 hours a week. We as Western adults have to decide how much we let our kids play on mobile phones. Yeah. But there are also good things to do, like banking. And you ask the question why it hasn't happened. It's actually very difficult for somebody under 16 to get an app functioning with any of the existing banks out there. And that too is a problem that we try to solve. Our youngest app user is actually 3 years old. So it's very easy for you as a parent to just add them as an individual, because that takes care of, let's say, their proof of address, for example, and they can easily download an app, have their own account, start using it, which is a very good thing in terms of financial responsibility and education, and then start using the savings account. So it's the ease with which they can download an app, start using it, and they also love personalizing their card, getting their own selfie on a card. That's something the youth particularly like. I'm a little bit embarrassed about mine, but not my kids.
But it comes back to the issue of savings and having this culture of not saving enough. I came from a home that was very conservative. Around the dinner table, we didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about finances. Maybe it's why I ended up in the career I did, because I felt I needed to educate people. We needed to break that taboo and that cultural stigma. And the younger you have that conversation, in a responsible fashion, teaching your children about the value of saving, the responsibility that comes with handling a card, I think the better in terms of breaking down those sort of cultural barriers to saving. Now, obviously online, cybersecurity is a big issue. And I think we've become, through COVID, a lot more au fait with giving our details over on e-commerce sites. But things like rogue debit orders, a form of white-collar crime, is also rampant. I know the Payments Association has been working tirelessly on debit check and things like that. Should banks not do more, though, here to protect their customers from things like rogue debit orders?
Yes, Michael, you're quite right. And I've actually got a little bit of a thing about this, because it's a form of white-collar crime and people are getting away with it, typically by using small amounts and checking if anything happens and then increasing these amounts. And a lot of South Africans actually don't get regular statements, partly because they, let's say they're in an informal area, you don't know where those statements need to be delivered, or they don't have an email address. Now, the thing that Bank Zero does is it immediately notifies you when a debit order goes off. In fact, when debit orders are loaded, it'll tell you about it the evening before, particularly if you don't have funds in your account, so that you can make a plan. You can either reject a debit order or you can get funds put into your account. So it's again something that mobile phones allows you to do that's not built into the legacy type or traditional type of banking system. Debit check is very good. It applies to all new debit orders. But the controls we put in place applies to all debit orders, and it puts the user in control. And it certainly, we haven't seen one rogue debit order that hasn't been addressed for our client base. And long may that continue.
Oh, I was going through my credit card statement the other day and found a debit order that had been going off for mahjong for some time, and I figured out that was for Minecraft. And one of my daughters had registered for Minecraft without explaining it to me. But it'd been going on for months behind the scenes. We don't check these kinds of things, so that's really important to empower users. Now, back to your value proposition for SMEs or for all businesses, really. The thing about business mandates is they technically often quite complex. They typically require a branch visit. They're kind of high touch to set up or change. So how are you going to handle all of that, handle all of the legal complexities in an online kind of virtual space?
Because typically, if you're a business, you sign, I don't know, 50 pages of a mandate. And I always think by the time you sign 50 pages, you don't really read through it all. And I question the value of doing so. Plus, you have to go into a branch, or you have to do it on a face-to-face basis. And again, not having branches, we had to design the process to be completely electronic. So it's the exact same process. You download the app and you register as a business. Right now, it's available for Android, and iOS will come very soon, I'm told. It could be in the next month's time. So the registration with your business mandate is easy, and then amendments are equally easy. So if a director resigns, or you put a new director on board, you have a new financial administration person, this is something you can easily do on the app, including assigning mandates. So if your business, you want to say this person can spend up to, I don't know, 50,000, that one can do 20,000, but needs sign off by 2 other levels. All of these things you can now do on your app. You can even, when you go away on holiday, change those authorization levels, and when you're back, change them back. Once again, traditional banks will do this via paperwork. If you're a modern fintech type of bank and you want to innovate and you know where the pain points are for business customers, you just solve this on your smartphone.
Yeah, I mean, in a world where you can work from anywhere, Michael, now, if you can't bank from anywhere, then I think you actually really are falling very far behind. Well done for taking this through the valley of commercialization death, and good luck in your journey now of scaling and growing what is clearly a fantastic and very digitally native offering in a market that so desperately needs the baobab shaken. Michael Jordaan, the founder of Bank Zero, sharing his journey with us here on Business Talk.
Thank you so much, Michael, from me and from the team at Bank Zero.